Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Talking Cubs. I'm your host, Ryan Davis, and I'll be joined in a moment by my co host, Sean Sears. Today, we are previewing an NL Central team, looking at maybe one of the most improved teams in the NL Central or in Major League Baseball, period. Sean, are the Cincinnati Reds going to be good enough this year to compete in the division, or are they still kind of a step behind everybody else?
Yeah, that's a good question, honestly. They, like you were saying, they added a lot this offseason and a lot of obviously star talent guys. We know Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp's of the world, Sonny Gray, if you still want to call him a star. But I still don't know if it's enough to push them in the company of the Cubs, Cardinals, and Brewers, who are really probably the real threats in the NL Central this year. That being said, I mean, the Reds do have a lot of guys that can hit the ball relatively hard and playing in Great American Ballpark, they're going to hit a lot of home runs. They could have a really nice offense. The big question for me is kind of how reliable is their pitching?
Yeah, so let's look at their additions and subtractions. Maybe I missed a few, but they've added a ton of players.
Here's a lot.
Uh, yeah, their additions. Tanner Roark they acquired from the Washington Nationals. In the trade with the Dodgers, they got Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp, and Alex Wood on the Major League roster. Then Sonny Gray in a deal with the Yankees. They signed our old friend Anthony Bass. Uh, Odrisamer Despaigne. I always stumble on that name. They signed him. They signed Zach Duke. They signed Derek Dietrich to a minor league contract. And then on the subtraction side, the major names that you're going to care about that they lost this offseason Billy Hamilton, Homer Bailey, Matt Harvey. It looks like a healthy rotation would be Alex Wood, who's going to be out for opening day. I think he has a back problem. But then after Alex Wood, in some order, Tanner Roark, Gray, Luis Castillo, and either Anthony DeSclafani or Tyler Mahle. There are some questions with the pitching, but that's a much better starting rotation than they throughout the last couple years. And I think the kind of consensus around the Reds for a couple, maybe a year or so has been this team is good enough to score some runs. It's just whether they can get the pitching. And now at least they have a couple decent starting pitchers.
Yeah, they really do. And I know you were someone that was high on the Reds last year, high being a team that could win 70 plus games, maybe 75. I think that team is probably this team now. You look at some of these pitchers. I mean, they still lack what you probably call that front end ace. They don't really have that, but they've got a lot of threes and fours. Alex Wood, when he does come back, as long as he's healthy, that's a really good pitcher to build around. Even Tyler Mahle had some good moments last year as well. The real question is, what about the rest of these guys? Can someone step up and elevate their game? Do you know what you're getting out of Sonny Gray? It seemed like him and Tyler Chatwood both were running, for worst pitcher of 2018 last year, and I feel like they tied. So, there's a lot of pieces here that you just don't know a ton about. But realistically, when you look at that offense, I know you were kind of going over the heart of the lineup here before we got started. There's some names in there that are going to drive in some runs. And obviously, when you got Joey Votto, you've got probably at least a pretty good offense. And they've got some young prospects coming up now. People are talking about Nick Senzel this year. He might eventually get the call up at some point with the Reds. There's a lot of things you like about Cincinnati. I'm just not sure it's enough to push them into the company of some of the elite teams in the NL Central as well as the National League in general.
Yeah, well, maybe it's not, but you still have a middle of the lineup of Joey Votto, Eugenio Suarez, who is probably the most underrated hitter in the game, I think.
100%.
Uh, Yasiel Puig, Scooter Gennett, and Matt Kemp, who probably will be playing part time with a guy like Jesse Winker or one of their other outfielders, maybe Scott Shebler. So
Mm-hmm.
the decent team. I mean, at least in the middle of the lineup. So you have some good relievers. You have Brycel Iglesias, who's a solid closer. You have Michael Lorenzen, who's a good relief pitcher, who is also a really good hitter, who they actually have played in center field some this spring. So you've got a two-way player on the Reds who, I mean, any two-way player is immediately one of my favorite players in the game.
Right.
Um, but so were 67 and 95 last year. They haven't won 70 games since 2014. I think there's a safe bet that they will win over 70 games this year. But before we finish on the Reds, I have a trivia question for you, and this regards Joey Votto. I
Ooh.
told you specifically that I had a trivia question before we started, so I told you to stay away from Votto stats. He had 623 plate appearances last year, and he posted an excellent 125 OPS plus, a little below what you might expect from him, but still very good. In those 623 plate appearances, how many home runs did Joey Votto hit?
Ooh. 20 home runs.
No, he hit 12.
I knew he didn't hit too many home runs last year, but I thought still like I wouldn't have expected under 15. That's weird. I mean,
Yeah,
Chris
he
Bryant hit more home runs than him. That's crazy.
yeah, he hit 36 the year before in a full season, and this was 145 games, so not an entire season, but I think what most players would call a full season worth of games. Only 12 home runs. It was a very Mark Grace like season for Joey Votto.
That's a really good way to put it. I know looking at some of the projections, a lot of people kind of have the Reds getting really close to that 80 win mark, 77 to 79. Where are you slotting them at for the season?
I'm a little bit higher on the Reds again, and that's
Yeah.
probably going to be my downfall as always. I think they're maybe 82, 83 wins, somewhere in that range.
I don't think it's ridiculous. I think 79 is about the right number. I think I could see them going a little bit above that, but 81, 82 seems like that's where they'll be. If they surpass that, if they get to like 85, 86 wins, it could happen, I guess, but I'm feeling like 70, 80 wins is probably where they're at.
I've seen a lot of doomsaying Cubs fans who think that because the Reds acquired Yasiel Puig, they're suddenly a 90 win team. I think that's a bridge too far. But yeah, no, I think 86 or so could be like their absolute ceiling if things go
Mhm.
well and their pitching comes together. I feel like this is a decent team. So who knows? I think as far as where they sit in like the actual standings in the division, fourth place is most likely, in my opinion. But if they get to 86 and then maybe a team like the Brewers who already have some kind of questions in their bullpen, uh, considering some injuries and how great their bullpen kind of carried them last year. If things go absolutely like horrible for the Brewers, I could see the Brewers winning only like 84, 85. So it's possible the Reds get to third place, but that'd be a major stretch for them.
Yeah, that's kind of where that's something. It would take something like like a Brewers or like if the Cubs do collapse, like everyone seems to think they are projection wise, for them to kind of jump into third place. I don't know if they have the talent to necessarily unseat one of those top three teams in the Central.
Yeah. So let us know what you guys think. Go down to the comments below and tell us where you think the Reds might fall, what you think of their roster, what you think of the moves they've made, where you think they're going to fall in the division or just their win totals. Be sure to click that subscribe button down below as well if you're liking what we're doing, and we will talk to you again next time.